Well, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Thank you for coming out here this evening. I am Deacon Tom here at St. Peter. It's lovely to see you all out here. It was a beautiful day, and now you get a chance to spend some time together here in the comfort and camaraderie of St. Peter the Fisherman. Our speaker tonight is Sister Pam Biehl. She is a Franciscan sister of Christian Charity from right here in Manitowoc. Sister Pam has got an extensive history, not the least of which is she spent 14 years at St. Mary in Omro in Winneconne. She also spent time at St. Raphael Parish in Oshkosh. And I know that was kind of difficult duty because you had to work with Father Dan, now Bishop Dan. You've heard your share of singing homilies, so I'll spare you one. And Sister Pam was kind enough to help us out with this topic. And honestly, it was funny when we were first talking as people were coming in. I asked her if she was worried whether anyone was going to show up. She said, "Well, I can't. That's the topic of the talk. I can't be worried." So let's give a warm welcome, please, to Sister Pam Biehl.
Thank you. Oh, it's good to see you all tonight. Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here and to share a little bit about worry with you. I learned a lot myself as I prepared this evening for you. So everything that I'm going to talk about, not everything, but a general outline is on your handout tonight. So just you can follow along when I get to that last line, and you know I'm almost finished, all right? So it's good to see all of you tonight. So I think because the topic is do not worry about anything, we should start maybe with the definition so we're all on the same page. What does it mean to worry? So you'll see that at the top of your handout. To worry means to allow one's mind to dwell on difficulty or troubles. And I think that word dwell is really important there. And then it's also can be a state of uncertainty over actual things or potential things. There was also an interesting definition that I came across that said that the word worry means to tear at, gnaw on, or drag around with your teeth. And so a nice sentence might be, I found my dog contentedly worrying a bone. I never used it in that context. So, okay, so that's a little bit of definition as we move through this evening tonight. So let's talk about, first of all, the difference between worry and anxiety, okay? Worry is temporary. Anxiety is persistent, and it can compromise your ability to function. So let's be clear, I am not a psychologist. I am not trained to deal with mental health issues. Tonight, we're just going to talk a little bit about worry. Maybe some of you have been more worried than usual lately because of COVID-related things. And now we know with the fighting in Ukraine, that's another worry that we may be dealing with. And that may not affect us directly, but lots of ways indirectly, just gas prices alone. So as we think about worrying and what it is, what are the things that you worry about these days? So on the back of your handout, you have a little Post-it note, and maybe you have a pencil with you as well. Would you just take a minute and in large letters like 18 or 20 point type, can you just put a word or two of something that you may be worrying about right now? And then I'd ask you to stick it on the side of your pew, because I'm just going to come around and kind of read those so you get a sense of what people here tonight may be worrying about as we talk about that a little bit. All right? So I'll give you a couple minutes to do that. And then just stick them on on this pew so I can just come down and then up and look at them. Just one word or two words, not 25, okay? Just a couple worries. Whoever invented Post-it notes, I hope they're very rich because they're just the greatest, aren't they? Don't you use them all the time? I should have stock in the company. Yeah, just so I can read them. I'm just gonna, so I can see them. Okay. Okay. Okay, are we pretty much done? I'm just going to come around and just read the words so you can get a sense of what people are thinking about or worrying about this evening, okay? I'm just going to read them. War and health concerns, medicine, health, if I can do a job well enough for others, grandchildren, my children, health, my children and grandchildren, salvation, peace on earth, pending retirement and its adjustments, impacts of high inflation, my ill sister, health, work, war, health, my health, financial security, blood tests, granddaughters on spring break, a friend who will be lonely on his birthday tomorrow, Catholic education support, son John, World War III and my kids being drafted, the Catholic Church being led astray, war spreading into World War III, people not seeing the truth in matters of faith, Ukraine, Russia, U.S. political divide, bullying, health, children, knee surgery, health, my daughter, health, recent health diagnosis, family relationships, home, health, aging, my husband's health, our daughter's addiction, living alone since my spouse died, religion, everything in my house, daughter's health and dental issues, daughter and son-in-law, future, health, family, children, grandkids. Oh, lots of worries. Real worries. What did you keep hearing over and over again? What words? Health. Health. What? Another one? War. Yeah. Lots of worries in our life right now. So I'm just hoping that, as I'm sure we all are, that these are more temporary and they don't turn into something more persistent, which makes them anxieties. So tonight we're just going to focus a little bit and think that and pray that these worries are temporary. I thought I was pretty worry-free until about 3 weeks ago. It was about 5 days after I said yes to giving this talk on February 24th. In fact, as I was preparing the talk, I think, how am I going to talk about worry when I'm so blessed and experience so little of it in my life? At least at that moment, I thought that was true. Then I broke my wrist on February 7th, and I found I was really worried about how I was going to get this talk written when I couldn't type because my wrist hurt so much. Then the next day when I decided, well, I had to start putting something on paper, even if my wrist hurt, so I started to type, and my computer decided it didn't have enough disk space. So how did that happen? What does that mean? So at that moment, it meant my computer couldn't save anything I typed. I could just feel the worry rising in me and felt a bit of a panic, wondering how was I going to get this talk prepared when my wrist hurt so much that I could hardly type, and then my computer wouldn't save anything that I finally did get typed. So as I started to put this together a few weeks ago, at least I could say before I give this talk that I had experienced a little bit of worry. And I did get it written, and then of course the talk was canceled and rescheduled, and so there was plenty of time to prepare. So just an experience of worry, and because we say worry is temporary, thank God it was temporary. So why do we spend so much energy worrying? Well, some people say it's because we don't trust enough in God, or we're reluctant to admit that we can't control everything, and so we make what we want and can make what we want happen. Or maybe we've just been brainwashed by the culture for our worst fears to happen, and setbacks and tragedies. Someone wrote that worrying is like praying for those worst fears to happen, or worry is a prayer for disaster. Are those the reasons why you and I worry? Worry does this. It scatters our attention. It leads to moodiness or depression. It saps our physical strength, and it depletes our emotional will. None of that sounds very good, does it? And then I went back to the title of this talk, and what does it say? Do not worry about anything. Okay, well, that's definitely easier said than done. You can say all those kind of wonderful words, but it's not as easy to do as it is to say. So how could Paul say that to the Philippians, which is where that line is from, when he was writing to them from prison, knowing that any day he might be put to death? I think that part is important to remember because it sets the stage for Paul's letter. He is writing this letter to the Philippians, this letter of encouragement and advice in the midst of persecution. But even while he's in prison, he shows a spirit of hope and encouragement. So sometime when you have time, read that whole letter to the Philippians. In that short letter, he uses the words rejoice and joy 15 times. And that says to me that living in Christ doesn't mean that everything is going to go wonderfully. But it does mean that God can get you through the good times and the difficult times with joy. So why don't we just believe that and stop worrying? Well, first of all, I think it's easy to get caught up in a cycle of worrying. We don't learn ways for us to stop worrying. And then it can feel that we're just stuck with chronic worry forever. Worry is often a result of violated boundaries. Not other people violating our boundaries, but we violating our own boundaries. A lot of worry happens because we think we are responsible for things that you and I are just not responsible for. Think about it for a minute. Think about some of those worries. Am I responsible for the thing that I'm worried about? It may be someone else's responsibility, and it may be the thing that you're worried about is in God's hands and is God's responsibility. It's natural to have a passing concern about things. But as our concern crosses our minds, I think we find ourselves at a fork in the road. And we can take one of those roads or the other. One road leads to the land of what I call rumination. Isn't that a great word? Rumination. When was the last time you used that word? It means to go over and over again in your mind repeatedly, kind of like a cow that chews its cud, right? Swallows it, chews it, swallows it, comes back up slightly, it swallows and chews it some more. Okay, isn't that what we do? Our mind delights in ruminating on problems. We think all of our worrying is working toward a solution, but it isn't. We think all of that ruminating is accomplishing something, but it isn't. Our minds don't really want to solve the problem because our minds love to ruminate on it. I remember living with a sister once, and I was having an issue with one of the staff members in the parish. And eventually, I'm trying to decide, there were some things that had happened, and I know that I needed to terminate this person, but how do I go about doing that? And in the end, she resigned, which I was very grateful for, and thankful to God I didn't have to deal with all that terminating means. But I must have said that incident, shared that incident a few times, because finally, one day, the sister I was living with said to me, "How many times are you going to tell me that story?" And I'm like, I don't know. How many times have I told you already? And she said, enough. And I thought, I guess you just, did it solve anything? No. But over and over again, we play that tape. For what? Doesn't accomplish anything, doesn't work toward a solution. Do we just love to hear that story again, that horrible story? So think about that for a minute and some of the things that you may be worrying about. Do we just find ourselves ruminating on it? Not working toward a solution, not accomplishing something, just ruminating, running it over and over, playing the tape over and over again in our minds. Notice that our minds ruminate on situations that we have absolutely no influence over. No amount of ruminating sometimes is going to bring us control over that situation. Sometimes maybe, but a lot of times not. The other fork in the road, so one fork is ruminating, the other fork in the road that we could take as we think about our worries is the path of prayer. That's definitely the road less traveled, the road that's high up into the mountains. We would rather worry uselessly about things we can't change than pray with purpose to the one who can change things. So when you are worried, observe yourself. Do you pray? If not, why not? Trust in God is the antidote for worry. Prayer is as simple an expression of our trust in God. Turn your worry into prayer. Again, easier said than done sometimes. All right, so Paul, if you notice in the quote that you'll see on your sheet, is quick to tell the Philippians what to do. And what does he tell them to do? He tells them to pray, that other fork in the road. After he says, do not worry about anything, he ends the sentence with these words. But in everything, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. Not worrying about anything means making our request in prayer with gratitude, because we recognize that power of prayer. We recognize that power of God. And it's that trust and reliance in God that results in a peace that should end and can end and will end fear and worry. So, there are people out there who say that they're spiritual and not religious. And I'm sure many of you have met them. I have people in my own family that tell me that line. I'm spiritual but not religious. What does that mean? They don't go to church. That's what I think it means. So they call prayer mindfulness and deep breathing. Okay? And that's okay, because you and I might call it prayer and meditation. And the bottom line is that this is all about sitting quietly, clearing your mind, and being open to the moment, whatever you call it. I call it being open to God's word and his life in me. And I think it's about remembering that God is with us and we can give him all of our worries. So, before we go any farther tonight, you and I are going to take some time to pray, because I know if I just say to you, now I want you to go home and do these things, you'll say, oh, sister, yeah, that's a great idea. And then you're going to get home and you're going to see there are 100 things that you have to do first, and you'll never get to it. The dishes maybe aren't finished, or one more load of laundry, you got to make lunches, whatever it is, or you're too tired. So we're going to do it right here tonight. And so I want to tell you a couple things that we're going to do to help you during this 8 minutes that we're going to take to be able to pray. Okay, so you'll see all of what I'm going to share with you now right on your handout. So when I'm finished talking and we start that 8 minutes, you can just go through it on your own, all right? But we're going to practice a couple of those things before we do them. So, first thing, need to pay attention to your breath. You and I take 20,000 breaths a day, including while we're asleep. A lot of times when I'm upset or worried, you may have, and this may have happened to you, somebody will just say, Pam, just breathe. Take a deep breath and you'll be fine. My yoga teacher used to tell me that all the time. Breathe. And we all know that the simple act of breathing can have a positive effect on us. But most of the time, we're breathing shallow breaths through our nose or our mouth. And that's normal breathing. That's not bad. It's just normal breathing. So what we want to do is take a time to breathe low and slow, okay? It doesn't involve huge breaths. It just, what we want to do is just take in the right amount of oxygen and then conserve at the same time your carbon dioxide so that the oxygen you're taking in will go where it needs to go, all right? So that's on your handout. So I'm going to go through this with you now, and then you can practice while I talk it through, and then when you're praying those 8 minutes, you can do it on your own. So first you would shift your breath from your chest to your belly, and the best way to do that, although this isn't the best place, is to lay on your back. If you lay on the floor, that you will naturally breathe that way, and that's true, because that's what I learned in yoga. So because you need to breathe from down here. Then you take a comfortable sized breath in. Okay, you can do that now while I'm talking if you want to try it. And then it doesn't have to be a big breath, okay? You don't have to, like, as much breath as you can take. And then shifting your breath to the belly is going to just naturally deepen that breath. And then you're going to exhale slowly, as comfortably as you can. And you allow that exhaling to be longer than the inhaling. So you want to get out all of that breath. All right, so you don't need to rush. And then you let your body just inhale again when it's ready. Normal size, comfortable kind of breath, followed by a long, slow, complete exhaling. And if you do that for about 5 minutes, that will allow the intensity of what you are experiencing decrease, some of that worry, just physically. So we'll probably spend 5 minutes out of the 8 doing that tonight, but just a couple of times as you begin your prayer to inhale and exhale, low and slow breathing, okay? That's the first thing. Stop, slow down a little bit from the day. The second thing is it's a good idea to do a little body scan. So when you're worrying, it's natural to tighten your muscles. So over time, you got these raised shoulders, you got a tight jaw that can cause chronic tension. So the more you worry, the more tension you continuously carry in your body. Your body knows when you're worried. Your body reacts to that. So it's sensitive to that. So take a moment to do a body scan to help you reconnect to the present. And all you have to do is start with your toes and give your dedicated attention, each part of your body, up to your head. So when you feel the tension, you focus your breathing into that discomfort and physically relax. And it does help to release the tightness in your body, help you feel more grounded, help you to ease your worry. Physical things, give that worry to God. To make sure that, because we carry that worry in our bodies. And then we wonder why our shoulders hurt or our back hurts or our legs hurt. We carry all that tension. So those are the first 2 things you do before you then begin to pray. Because now your body is ready. We're not just our body isn't just our heads, it's all of us. And so we want to go through 3 things when you pray, just to give you, and if you don't only get through the first one, that's fine. But I gave you enough so you have enough for those 8 minutes. So Paul says that quote that you have on your sheet, do not worry about anything. Look at that quote, that whole quote of Philippians 4:6-7. And notice these 4 things that Paul is saying, okay? The first thing is he's saying that prayer is the opposite of worry. Do not worry about anything, but in everything by prayer and petition. He is deliberately choosing a state of abundance or thanksgiving, because he says, with thanksgiving. He's not blaming or complaining from a sense of scarcity, but it's thanksgiving, it's abundance. Then he says that the peace that comes with prayer is a state of radical contentment, and it can be sought and surrendered to, no matter what problems are present. The peace of God does not descend when you have nothing to worry about. It doesn't descend. The divine peace is when you are not worried by all the things you could worry about. And that's just not being clever, that's just being true. So, and then the last thing that Paul is saying is that peace is much larger than the mind needs to understand, label, and explain everything. That So he says, then the peace of God that surpasses all understanding will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. 4 things that Paul is saying in those 3 little sentences. Okay? So we're going to take 8 minutes now to do those 3 things. We're going to take time to breathe low and slow. We're going to do a body scan. And we're going to pray and stay with Paul's words, if you want, on that handout you see. And I gave you Jesus' words. He has a lot to say in the gospel about worry. I think his listeners had trouble with worry just as much as we sometimes do. So I gave you that quote from Matthew. And then I found a quote by Pope Francis that I thought might be encouraging too. So I don't want you to think you have to get through all of this. You know, you can take those sheets home with you. But if the Lord is calling you to stop on a word or to think about something as you're reading that, then stop and read that and listen. And most of all, listen to God. All right? That's what you want to do. And as you pray about these things, you might not want to use any words at all. You might want to just sit there and wait for grace to touch you. Wait for grace to calm you down, to touch the one for whom you might be praying for too. There may be people, as we heard, grandchildren and children, people who are ill, all of those things that we are worried about. God knows what your worries are if you don't even, so you don't have to tell him. God knows why. You don't need to say a thing. All right? So even if you're just sitting there in that calm space, taking in God's grace and his love for you, sit with that. All right? So settle in as best as you can in the pews. They're nice cushion. They're not the most comfortable, but they'll do tonight. If you need to spread out, if you need to be away from people, please feel free to move anywhere in this church during that time. Remember that you're here for an hour tonight, and this is part of that hour. You have nowhere to go until 7 o'clock, all right? So we're going to just take these 8 minutes to pray and to let God do the worrying for us, all right? He knows what they are. He knows why. We don't have to say a thing. So we're going to just turn on some music so you get a little space. And for the next 8 minutes, I just invite you to pray and hand over to God your worries. So this time wasn't magic, and it may not have taken away your worry, but I hope it has given you an experience that has shown you there is power in prayer. Paul isn't only reminding the Christian Philippians to stay in prayer with much to be grateful for, but he tells them that the reason for praying is that the unexplainable presence, peace of God will guard our minds and hearts. As I said a few minutes ago, not worrying about anything means making our requests in prayer always with gratitude, because you and I recognize the power of prayer and we recognize the power of God. It's that trust and reliance in God that results in a peace that gets rid of our fear and worry. And I know that is all easier said than done, but that's where the trust comes in. Your worry may not disappear, but hopefully taking time for prayer will give you the ability to cope with what you're worried about. Maybe you get a new insight into an issue that you're dealing with, and it doesn't have the same negative hold on you. The situation hasn't changed, but the way you view it has. I know once I stopped and took time to breathe and realized that I had enough time to prepare for this talk, really now in the end 4 weeks, and it was my right wrist and not my left, because I am left-handed, which meant I could still write, I could brush my teeth, and comb my hair decently. The worry subsided. I wish the pain would have too, and I could be grateful at least a little. I said in my short explanation of this talk that I would share 4 ways to help you worry less and celebrate life more. If praying was the first one, then there are 3 more, if anyone is counting, that I'd like to share with you before we close tonight. So here they are, and they're also on your sheet if you're following along. Number 2, try not to jump to conclusions and assume the worst. Most of the time, you did turn off the stove. Your vacation will be good even if it rains, and God loves you so much that you don't have to worry about how you look, what people are saying about you, or whether you are a success. Don't let worry shape your days. And I would add to that a couple of things for others too that you're dealing with. Give people the benefit of the doubt. And most of all, give them more than they deserve. I try so hard to do that, because how quickly we say, well, she doesn't deserve that. She doesn't deserve this. He doesn't deserve that. Give people more than they deserve. And definitely the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes we forget that. Number 3, use your worries to connect with other people. We all live in anxious times. COVID, natural disasters of every kind, all over the news every day, from storms and snow and tornadoes. Now we have the fear of war with other countries and violence in our towns. Those are very real causes of deep concern. So find out where you can be of service here in your parish, your local community in Two Rivers here. What can you do to lessen the worry of someone else? It's harder to be overcome by worry when you are caring about others. There was a study that was done in the year 2000 that said people who volunteer are 42% more likely to be very happy than non-volunteers. God's plan for each of us is to find unique ways to make an impact in someone else's life. When God uses us to change our life, to change other lives, our life gets renewed in the process. Isn't that true? When you make someone else happy, you are happy too. I remember when I used to live out west, and I couldn't get home for Christmas or Easter. We weren't allowed to come home once every 2 years. And I'd call my mother, crying and feeling sorry for myself. And I thought she would give me a little sympathy, and she didn't. She said, just go out and find someone else who isn't having a good Easter, a good Christmas. You know, there's a lot of people in your area, at that time I was teaching on the Indian reservation, that are probably really having a hard time. So get out there and do something for others. And I hung up the phone and I was mad, you know, because that's not what I wanted to hear. But I did what she asked me to do, and she was right. I came home. It was one of the best Christmas days I had in many, many years. I look back on that day, and all I did was go from one house to the other, just basically saying Merry Christmas, seeing who was home on the reservation that day. So, no, God uses us to change lives, and when we do that, our life is changed in the process. So connect with others, reach out, and do care about someone else who may be worrying as well. And last of all, fourth one, do something fun every day. Do something fun. I know a lot of people as we age that, you know, used to do something when they were 40 and it was fun. Like I knew a guy who he and his wife set up this Christmas village in their home. I'm telling you, they must have had 100 extension cords and 100 little houses, you know, that lit up and moved and things would turn and twist. And when he was 30 and 40, he had a great time putting that up. Well, now he's 70. And I said, you know, Jeff, is that fun anymore? If right away he said no. I said, why do you do it? Give them away, sell them, you know, bring them to Vincent de Paul. Why are you doing that, spending an entire week before Christmas, putting up a Christmas village that you hate doing now? You know, we used to love doing it when we were 30, but not when we're 70. Now it's work. Who wants to get under those tables and put those 100 cords together? So find something that you love to do and do it. Something you want to do every day and don't have to do. Take some positive action that can make you feel good, and it can quickly shift your mind and help you to stop worrying instantly. You know, maybe it's just taking 10 minutes to read or stopping to watch the birds or the squirrels in your backyard. Maybe it's making a new recipe you've always wanted to try for a long time, or visiting a park you've never been to, calling or writing a card to a friend, or enjoying a cup of your hot winter drink. Maybe now we have to say a nice cold summer drink as the weather changes these days. Simple things, they don't cost money, but things that you love to do and want to do. You know, doing something you truly enjoy is a powerful method for helping you focus on the present moment and to stop worrying. And it's also a great way to be grateful for the things that you and I have. And you know we have many, many things to be grateful for. As Matthew Kelly always talks about these days in his new book, Staggering Generosity, that we need to be that we need to have a staggering, generous outlook and be there for people to just give and give and give. Maybe we can be like Scarlett O'Hara, you know, that southern damsel in distress in that movie Gone with the Wind, who never let worry get her down. Her approach was always this: I'll think about it tomorrow. Tomorrow's another day, if you remember that from the movie. So maybe you need to give yourself permission to put your tiny worries off until tomorrow. Chances are, if they're that small, you probably won't remember what they are the next day anyway. So in closing, I hope that incorporating these 4 things into your daily life will promote a calmer frame of mind and help to ward off at least some of the worry in your life. Remember that how something ends up never depends on how much we worry about it. No matter how something ends up, never depends on how much we worry about it. At the end of the day, you are the only one who can take the action needed to worry less and live the life that God has called you to live. So just for today, let's make up our minds and our hearts to say, I will not worry. So I have little cards. I'm not sure if I have exactly enough for everybody tonight, but the little card that you see at the bottom of your handout, I'll put in the back, and you just take one with you. So at least for today, or maybe tomorrow, you will wake up and just be able to say, I will not worry, just for today. Thank you. Thanks for coming tonight, everyone.